The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast strange purple shadows through the crystal windows of the Galactic University. Professor Jake Morrison stood in front of his classroom, adjusting his notes one last time. Today was the first day of his new course, Predator-Prey Dynamics Across Worlds. He had been looking forward to this class for months. Jake was one of only 12 humans teaching at the university. He had come here 3 years ago from Earth, where he had spent 15 years studying marine biology. The transition from Earth's oceans to alien ecosystems had been challenging, but rewarding. Now he got to share knowledge from dozens of worlds, with students from even more species. The classroom door slid open with a soft hiss. Zixara entered first, her forearms carrying data tablets while her compound eyes scanned the room. She was a Thektai, standing nearly 8 feet tall with a body that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a spider. Her species evolved, from solitary hunters on a desert world where resources were scarce. Thektai rarely worked together, preferring to claim territory and defend it alone. Behind her came Veltar, a Shardine whose crystalline body caught the purple sunlight and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. The Shardine were herbivores from a world covered in crystal forests. They lived in hive minds, sharing thoughts and memories through vibrations in their crystal bodies. Veltar moved with the flowing grace of someone who never had to worry about predators. Kryn bounded in next, his gray fur still damp from the morning's exercise. He looked like a large wolf that had learned to walk upright, with bright yellow eyes and sharp teeth that he tried to hide when smiling at his classmates. The Fenris came from a low-gravity world where they hunted in small packs of 3 or 4. They were proud of their hunting skills, but their world had few large prey animals. A few more students filed in. 2 more Shardine, another Fenris, and 3 students from species Jake was still learning about. The classroom held 20 seats, but only 11 were filled. It was a small class, which Jake preferred. Better discussions that way. "Good morning, everyone," Jake said, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Welcome to Predator-Prey Dynamics. I'm Professor Morrison, but you can call me Jake. Before we start, I'd like each of you to introduce yourself and tell us about one predator from your home world." Zixara raised one of her 4 arms immediately. "I am Zixara of Clan Shadowstrike. On Thektai Prime, our greatest hunter is the Sandwraith. It can grow to 12 feet long and has claws that can cut through stone. It hunts alone as all proper predators should. Working with others is a sign of weakness." Her mandibles clicked with satisfaction as she spoke. Jake made a note on his tablet. Thektai, solitary hunters, view cooperation as weakness. Veltar's voice came as a musical chime, translated by the universal communicator. "I am Veltar, voice of the Eastern Crystal Grove. Our world has few predators, but the stone serpents hunt the crystal beetles that feed on our lower branches. They are quite large, perhaps 20 feet long. They hunt alone, sliding between the crystal trees." Jake nodded and made another note. "Shardine, few predators, large solitary hunters." Kryn spoke next, his voice a low growl that the translator made sound friendly. "I am Kryn of the Northern Peaks Pack. Our world has the Ice Stalkers. They are great white cats with thick fur and long fangs. They hunt alone most of the time, but sometimes a mated pair will work together during the breeding season. They can take down prey twice their size. Fenris, occasional pair hunting, mostly solitary," Jake wrote. The pattern continued as each student shared. Every species described predators that hunted alone. Some were massive, some were fast, some were incredibly clever, but all of them hunted by themselves. Jake kept taking notes, his expression neutral, but inside he was growing more excited. When the introductions finished, Jake stood and moved to the front of the class. "Thank you all for sharing. Those are fascinating examples. Now let me ask you a question. Why do you think most predators hunt alone?" Zixara answered quickly. "Because hunting is about skill and strength. The best hunter doesn't need help. Sharing a kill means less food for yourself." Veltar chimed in agreement. "Also, coordinating with others is difficult. It's easier to hunt when you only have to worry about your own actions." Kryn nodded. "And if you work with others, you have to trust them." What if they run when the prey fights back? Better to rely only on yourself. Jake smiled. All excellent points. These are logical conclusions based on your experiences. Now, let me tell you about my homeworld, Earth. He activated the classroom's holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, blue and green and white, slowly rotating in the center of the room. Earth is a water world. About 70% of its surface is covered in oceans. The rest is divided between 7 large continents and thousands of smaller islands. It has a wide variety of climates and ecosystems. The display zoomed in to show different environments: tropical forests, grasslands, deserts, polar regions, coral reefs. Earth has produced millions of different species over billions of years. Many of them are predators, but Earth's predators are unusual. Jake paused, watching his students lean forward with interest. You see, on Earth, the most successful predators rarely hunt alone. The classroom was quiet for a moment. Then Zixara's mandibles clicked in confusion. I don't understand. How can a predator be successful if it's weak enough to need help? That's exactly what we're going to explore, Jake said. Over the next few weeks, we'll study Earth's predators and learn why cooperation made them stronger, not weaker. He changed the display to show a list of topics they would cover: pack dynamics, communication systems, cooperative strategies, and evolutionary advantages. For next class, I want you to research one Earth predator. Look up lions, wolves, orcas, army ants, or any others you find interesting. Try to understand how they hunt together. As students gathered their materials and prepared to leave, Veltar approached Jake's desk. Professor Morrison, may I ask a question? Of course. These Earth predators that hunt together, are they small? Is that why they need help? Jake thought for a moment before answering. Some are small, some are large. But size isn't really the issue. Wait until you learn about orcas. They're 40 feet long and hunt in groups. Veltar's crystalline body flickered with confusion. 40 feet long and they still need help hunting? They don't need help, Jake said quietly. They choose to work together because it makes them better hunters. As Veltar left, still clearly puzzled, Jake began packing his own materials. Tomorrow's class would be interesting. He was going to show them videos of Earth predators in action. That's when they would begin to understand just how different Earth really was. Outside, the purple sun was climbing higher in the alien sky. Jake looked out the window at the peaceful campus, where students from dozens of species walked together, sharing knowledge and building friendships. They had no idea that they were looking at the most successful hunting strategy in Earth's history. Jake Morrison walked into his classroom the next morning carrying a box of Earth artifacts. Inside were bones, teeth, skulls, and fossilized remains he had brought from home. Nothing taught lessons about predators better than letting students hold the real thing. His students were already seated and ready. Zixara had clearly done her research. 3 tablets sat in front of her, screens glowing with information. Veltar hummed softly, a sign that she was sharing data with other Shardine through their crystal network. Even Kryn looked prepared, his yellow eyes bright with curiosity. Good morning, everyone, Jake said, setting the box on his desk. I hope you had a chance to research Earth predators. Let's start with what you found. Zixara's arm shot up immediately. I studied lions. They are quite small, only about 400 pounds. And the males don't even hunt. They just lie around while the females do all the work. This proves that cooperative hunting is for the weak. Jake nodded calmly. Interesting observation. What else did you learn? The females hunt together because they're too small to take down large prey alone. If they were proper predators, they wouldn't need help. Veltar chimed in next. I researched wolves. They are even smaller than lions, only about 150 pounds. They hunt in groups because they must. Their prey animals are often larger than they are. Kryn growled softly, which the translator rendered as laughter. I looked at both species too. My people are better hunters than either of them. We are larger, faster, and stronger. These Earth predators hunt in groups because they have no choice. Jake smiled. This was exactly the reaction he had expected. Those are all valid observations based on what you've learned so far. Now let me show you something. He activated the holographic display and brought up a video of a lion pride hunting. The scene showed 15 lionesses spread out across a grassland, moving toward a herd of zebras. "Watch carefully," Jake said. "Don't just look at their size. Look at what they're doing." The video played in slow motion. The lionesses had positioned themselves in a perfect circle around the zebra herd. Some stayed hidden in tall grass while others moved into the open, deliberately showing themselves to the zebras. "See how they're positioned?" Jake pointed to different spots on the display. The zebras run away from the visible lions, straight toward the hidden ones. This isn't just hunting together. This is tactical coordination. Zixara's compound eyes focused intently on the screen. They planned this? Keep watching. The hunt continued. When one lioness missed her target, another was perfectly positioned to take over the chase. When a zebra tried to break away from the group, two lionesses worked together to turn it back toward the others. This hunt required planning, communication, and perfect timing, Jake explained. Each lioness knew exactly what the others would do before they did it. Veltar's crystalline body flickered with nervous light. This level of coordination, it's almost like our hive mind, but they're individual creatures. Exactly. Now let's look at wolves. The next video showed a wolf pack hunting an elk in deep snow. The wolves had surrounded the animal, but they weren't all attacking at once. Instead, they took turns. One wolf would dart in to bite and tire the elk, then retreat while another took its place. "They're sharing the dangerous work," Kryn observed, his voice quiet. "Each wolf stays fresh while the prey gets more tired." "Right, and watch what happens when the elk tries to escape." The elk broke away from the pack and ran toward a frozen river. But 3 wolves were already waiting there, having predicted exactly where the elk would go. The prey animal skidded to a stop, trapped between the river and the pack. They knew where it would run before it did, Zixara whispered. Jake changed the video to show orcas hunting seals. The massive black and white whales worked together to create waves that washed seals off ice floes, then caught them in perfectly coordinated attacks. "These orcas are 40 feet long and weigh 6 tons each," Jake said. "They could easily hunt smaller prey alone, but they choose to work together to take on bigger challenges." The classroom was quiet except for the soft hum of Veltar's nervous vibrations. "Let me show you one more," Jake said. The final video showed army ants on the march. Millions of tiny insects moved across the forest floor like a living carpet, flowing around obstacles and overwhelming everything in their path. "Individual army ants are tiny," Jake explained. "But working together they can take down prey thousands of times their size. They build bridges out of their own bodies, form living nets to catch escaping prey, and coordinate attacks involving millions of individuals." Kryn leaned forward in his seat. "Professor Morrison, I need to ask something." "Go ahead." "My people hunt in packs of 3 or 4. We think this makes us clever hunters. But these earth creatures, they make us look like cubs playing games." Jake reached into his box and pulled out a lion skull, setting it on the desk where everyone could see it. The bone was yellowed with age, and the long canine teeth gleamed under the classroom lights. "This skull is from a cave lion that lived on Earth 30,000 years ago. Cave lions were larger than modern lions, with longer teeth and stronger jaws. They were perfect solo hunters." He set another skull next to it, smaller with different teeth. "This is from a modern lion. Smaller body, shorter teeth, built for a different kind of hunting. Can anyone guess what happened to the cave lions?" The classroom was silent. They went extinct. The smaller, weaker lions that hunted together survived. The big, strong solo hunters disappeared forever. Veltar's voice was barely a whisper. "The cooperative hunters outlived the solitary ones?" "Not just outlived, they replaced them completely. On Earth, cooperation isn't a sign of weakness. It's the ultimate survival strategy." Jake pulled out more skulls. Wolves, dire wolves, saber-toothed cats, and others. Earth has tried solo hunters many times. Large, powerful predators with massive teeth and claws. They all went extinct. The survivors were the ones who learned to work together. Zixara was staring at the skulls with all 4 eyes. "But why? How does hunting together make them stronger? That's what we're going to learn, Jake said. But first, I need to ask you a question. What do you think is the apex predator of Earth? The students looked at each other uncertainly. The biggest Earth predator I could find was something called a polar bear, Kryn said. About 1,500 pounds. Not very impressive compared to the ice stalkers on my world. Jake smiled. Polar bears are powerful, but they're not the apex predator. Anyone else? Maybe sharks? Veltar suggested. I read they can grow quite large. Good guess, but no. Zixara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. What about these orcas you showed us? They seemed quite large. Orcas are impressive, but they're not the apex predator either. Jake paused, looking at each of his students in turn. The apex predator of Earth averages about 150 pounds. It has no claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. It's not particularly fast or strong compared to other large predators. The students looked confused. But, Jake continued, this predator has never hunted alone. Not once in over 300,000 years of evolution. Every single hunt involves coordination with others of its kind. Zixara leaned forward. What is this creature? Jake's smile faded as he looked directly at her. You're looking at one. The classroom fell completely silent. Zixara's forearms froze in mid-motion. Veltar's crystal body stopped humming. Kryn's ears flattened against his head as he stared at Jake with wide yellow eyes. Humans? Zixara's voice cracked through, her translator. But you're so small, so weak, you don't even have proper claws or teeth. Jake nodded calmly. You're absolutely right. Individually, humans are terrible predators. We're slow, weak, and poorly armed, but we've never hunted individually. He activated the holographic display again. This time it showed a group of early humans on the African savanna. They wore animal skins and carried simple spears moving across the grassland in a coordinated line. This is how humans hunted for most of our evolution. It's called persistence hunting. Watch. The video showed the humans spotting a herd of antelope, but instead of trying to sneak up on them, they started running straight at the herd. The antelope bolted, easily outrunning the humans. They're too slow, Kryn observed. The prey escaped. Keep watching. The humans didn't stop running. They followed the antelope at a steady pace, not trying to catch up, just keeping them moving. After a few minutes, the antelope stopped to rest. The humans kept coming. Humans can run for hours without stopping, Jake explained. Most prey animals are built for short bursts of speed, but they overheat quickly. Humans can run in hot weather all day long. The hunt continued. Every time the antelope stopped to rest, the humans appeared again, forcing them to keep running. After 2 hours, the antelope were exhausted, tongues hanging out, barely able to move. Now watch the coordination, Jake said. The humans spread out in a line, surrounding the tired animals. They moved with perfect timing, each person knowing exactly where the others would be. When one antelope tried to break away, 2 humans were already in position to turn it back. This is pack hunting at its most basic level, Jake continued. But humans didn't stop there. We kept improving. The display changed to show humans from 10,000 years ago. They had better tools now, bows, arrows, and more sophisticated spears. But more importantly, they had developed complex communication. Human language evolved specifically for hunting, Jake explained. Other Earth species communicate, but humans developed the most complex communication system on the planet. We can share detailed plans, coordinate complex strategies, and adapt our tactics in real time. The video showed human hunters using elaborate hand signals to coordinate an attack on a mammoth. The massive creature was 20 times the size of any individual human, but 12 humans working together brought it down in minutes. Veltar's crystal body flickered nervously. They killed something that large? Humans regularly hunted creatures that could kill dozens of them individually. Mammoths, cave bears, giant cats. Size didn't matter when humans worked together. Zixara was studying the display intently. But surely this is ancient history. Modern humans don't hunt like this anymore, Jake smiled. Don't they? He changed the display to show modern human military operations. Soldiers moved through different terrain with the same coordinated precision as ancient hunters. Aircraft, ground vehicles, and individual troops all worked together with perfect timing. Human warfare is just hunting scaled up, Jake said. The same pack dynamics, the same coordination, the same strategic thinking. Humans have fought wars involving millions of individuals, all working together toward common goals. Kryn's voice was barely a whisper. Your entire species became one hunting pack, not just warfare, Jake continued. Human cities, businesses, governments, scientific research. It's all cooperative hunting behavior adapted for different purposes. The display showed humans building skyscrapers, thousands of workers coordinating their efforts. Then it showed the Mission Control Center for a space launch, hundreds of people working together to send humans to other worlds. When humans first reached space, it wasn't because one genius figured it out, Jake explained. It was because hundreds of thousands of humans worked together. Scientists, engineers, mathematicians, pilots, all hunting the same prey. What prey? Veltar asked. Knowledge. New worlds. The unknown itself. Jake brought up an image of the International Space Station orbiting Earth. Building that required cooperation between nations that had been enemies for centuries. Humans, from different cultures, speaking different languages, working together in space. Zixara was clicking her mandibles rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. But cooperation on that scale should be impossible. How do you coordinate so many individuals? The same way our ancestors coordinated mammoth hunts. Communication, planning, and trust. Humans have been practicing these skills for hundreds of thousands of years. Jake activated a new video showing a modern human city from above. Millions of people moved through the streets, each going about their own business, but the entire system flowed like a living organism. Every human city is a hunting camp that grew too large, Jake said. The same basic structures our ancestors used: shared resources, division of labor, coordinated defense, group decision-making. Kryn stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. Professor Morrison, I need to understand something. When humans first encountered other species, in space, were you hunting them? Jake paused. This was the question he had been expecting. That depends on how you define hunting, he said carefully. Humans approached first contact the same way they approach everything else, as a group challenge requiring cooperation. But you wanted something from us, Veltar said. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, technology sharing. You were seeking resources. Yes, but here's what makes humans different from traditional predators. When humans hunt, they don't always kill their prey. Jake brought up historical footage of human first contact with various alien species. In every case, humans had arrived in groups, with coordinated plans and unified goals. Humans learned long ago that some prey is more valuable alive than dead, Jake continued. A mammoth feeds the tribe for a week. A domesticated animal feeds the tribe forever. The implications hit the classroom like a physical blow. Zixara's forearms trembled. Veltar's crystal body dimmed to almost black. Kryn sat back down heavily. You domesticated other species, Zixara whispered. Humans domesticated hundreds of species on Earth. Dogs, cats, horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, chickens. We turned them into partners instead of prey. Jake brought up images of humans working alongside domestic animals. Farmers with oxen, riders with horses, shepherds with dogs. The same cooperative instincts that made humans successful hunters also made them successful at forming partnerships with other species. Instead of competing, humans found ways to work together. And now you're doing the same thing with us, Kryn said quietly. Jake looked at each of his students in turn. I'm not going to lie to you. When humans first encountered the galactic community, we approached it like any other challenge. We formed alliances, established trade relationships, and integrated ourselves into existing power structures. You hunted us without us knowing it, Zixara said. Or, Jake replied, we invited you to join the pack. The room was quiet for a long moment. Finally, Veltar spoke up. Professor Morrison, what happens to species that refuse to cooperate with humans? Jake's expression grew serious. That's a more complicated question. Humans prefer cooperation, but we've also spent 300,000 years learning how to deal with threats to the pack. He didn't need to explain further. Every species in the galactic community had heard stories about what happened to civilizations that chose to be hostile toward humanity. But here's the important thing, Jake continued. Humans genuinely prefer partnership over domination. It's more efficient, more stable, and more productive. Every species in this room has benefited from working with humans. Kryn nodded slowly. The technology sharing programs, the joint research projects, the cultural exchanges, all forms of pack hunting behavior, Jake confirmed. Humans instinctively look for ways to include others in their activities. It makes the pack stronger. Zixara was staring at her desk, all four eyes unfocused. We thought we were independent civilizations forming voluntary alliances. You are, Jake said, but you're also joining something much older and more fundamental than political agreements. You're joining a hunting strategy that has been refined over hundreds of thousands of years. The class period was almost over, but no one was moving to leave. Outside, the purple sun of Kepler 442b was reaching its zenith, casting strange shadows through the crystal windows. Next class, Jake said quietly. We're going to talk about why Earth's predators evolved this way. What made cooperation so necessary that an entire planet's worth of species developed pack hunting strategies. As students began gathering their materials, Veltar approached the desk again. Professor Morrison, one more question? Of course. Are we prey or partners? Jake thought, for a moment before answering. That depends entirely on what you choose to be. Jake Morrison arrived early to his classroom, knowing that today's lesson would be the most difficult one to teach. His students had spent the week processing the revelation that humans were Earth's apex predators, and their questions had grown, more complex and pointed with each day. The box of artifacts on his desk was larger today. Alongside the predator skulls were shells, fossilized plants, bird bones, and insect specimens. Today he needed to show them the whole picture. His students filed in quietly. The casual chatter that had marked the first few classes was gone. Zixara moved more carefully, her compound eyes constantly scanning the room as if seeing it for the first time. Veltar's crystal body hummed at a lower frequency, sharing nervous energy with her hive mind. Kryn's ears remained flattened, and he kept glancing at Jake as if trying to solve a puzzle. Good morning, Jake said as the last student took their seat. I know last week's lesson raised a lot of questions. Today we're going to explore why Earth's ecosystem developed the way it did. He activated the holographic display, showing Earth from space again, but this time, instead of the beautiful blue and green sphere, he zoomed in to show the constant motion across the planet's surface. Look carefully at what you're seeing, Jake said. These aren't just weather patterns. The display showed massive herds of animals moving across continents, millions of wildebeest crossing rivers in Africa, vast flocks of birds migrating between polar regions, schools of fish so large they darkened entire sections of ocean. On Earth, prey animals don't just hide from predators. They gather together in enormous groups. Zixara leaned forward. But that makes no sense. Larger groups would be easier for predators to find. You'd think so, Jake agreed. But watch what happens when predators attack these groups. The video changed to show lions hunting the wildebeest herd. But when the lions attacked, something unexpected happened. The hundreds of thousands of wildebeest didn't scatter randomly. Instead, they moved as one massive organism, flowing away from the predators like water. Individual wildebeest are easy to catch, Jake explained. But a herd of 1 million wildebeest becomes something different entirely. It's like trying to hunt a living mountain. The display showed more examples. Flocks of starlings twisting through the air in perfect synchronization, creating shapes that confused attacking hawks. Schools of fish forming tight balls that made it impossible for sharks to single out individual targets. Earth's prey animals evolved cooperative defense strategies, Jake continued. This forced predators to develop cooperative hunting strategies to counter them. Veltar's translator chimed with confusion. So the prey started cooperating first? Actually, it happened simultaneously over millions of years. Prey got better at working together, so predators had to get better at working together. Predators improved their cooperation, so prey had to improve theirs. It was an arms race that lasted for geological ages. Jake brought up a timeline showing Earth's evolution. 200 million years ago, most Earth predators hunted alone, just like on your worlds. But as prey animals began forming larger groups, solitary hunters couldn't compete. The timeline showed waves of extinction and adaptation. Species after species of solo hunters disappeared, replaced by pack hunters and swarm hunters. But it wasn't just about size, Jake continued. Earth's prey animals developed intelligence to coordinate their defenses, so predators had to develop intelligence to coordinate their attacks. He showed footage of chimpanzees working together to hunt monkeys, with complex strategies involving deception, ambushes, and coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Chimpanzees are omnivores, not dedicated predators. But they've developed hunting strategies more sophisticated than most apex predators on other worlds. Crin's voice was hoarse when he spoke. Professor Morrison, are you saying that everything on Earth evolved to work in groups? Not everything. But most successful species, yes. Jake opened his artifact box and began pulling out specimens. First came a section of honeycomb, the hexagonal pattern perfect and precise. Bees, he said simply. 50,000 individuals, working as one organism. They build cities, wage wars, and make collective decisions. Next came a piece of coral, white and branching like underwater trees. Coral reefs. Thousands of individual animals working together to build structures visible from space. They create ecosystems that support millions of other species. He pulled out a chunk of wood, the grain visible in the cross-section. This is from a tree that was part of a forest network. The trees share resources through underground fungal connections. When one tree is attacked by insects, it sends chemical signals through the network to warn the others. Veltar's crystal. Body brightened suddenly. Plants cooperate too? Not just cooperate, they communicate. Earth's forests are like your hive mind, but spread across thousands of square miles. Jake set out more specimens. Ant colonies that farmed fungus, termite mounds with complex ventilation systems, even bacteria that work together to form biofilms. Every level of Earth's ecosystem is built on cooperation, Jake said. From the smallest microorganisms to the largest whales. Zigzara was staring at the specimens with all four eyes. But why? What made Earth different from our worlds? Jake pulled up a new display showing Earth's geological history. Earth is a violent planet. Volcanic eruptions, ice ages, asteroid impacts, massive climate changes. Every few million years, something tries to kill everything alive. The display showed the great extinction events, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, the ice ages that buried continents, the volcanic eruptions that poisoned the atmosphere. Species that worked together survived these catastrophes. Species that didn't work together went extinct. Over billions of years, cooperation became the dominant survival strategy for all complex life on Earth. So humans aren't unusual, Crin said slowly. They're just the end result of this process. Humans are what happens when you take cooperation and push it to its absolute limit, Jake confirmed. We didn't just learn to work with our own species. We learned to work with any species that was willing to cooperate. He brought up images of humans working with animals, dolphins helping fishermen, horses carrying riders, dogs tracking prey, cats controlling pests. Humans became specialists in forming partnerships, with animals, with plants, with microorganisms, and eventually with other intelligent species. Jake paused, looking at his students carefully before continuing. There's something else you need to understand. Humans didn't just evolve on Earth, we changed Earth's evolution. The display showed human impact over the last 10,000 years. Domesticated crops spreading across continents, new species being bred and selected, entire ecosystems being managed and modified. Humans began directing the evolution of other species. We made crops more nutritious, animals more useful, and ecosystems more productive. We turned the entire planet into one giant cooperative system with humans at the center. Zixara's mandibles were clicking rapidly. You made your whole planet into an extension of your pack. More than that, Jake said. We made our planet into a laboratory for perfecting cooperation. Every human culture, every human technology, every human institution is an experiment in working together more effectively. He brought up images of human cities again, but this time highlighting the underlying cooperation. Water systems serving millions, power grids connecting continents, communication networks spanning the globe. When humans reached space, we brought this system with us. Every human colony, every space station, every starship is designed around the same principles that evolved in Earth's ecosystem. Veltar's voice was barely audible. And now you're applying those same principles to the galactic community. Jake nodded. Humans see the galaxy the same way we see any new environment, as a place where cooperation can create something greater than the sum of its parts. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the air recycling system. Outside, the purple sun cast its alien light across the university campus where dozens of species learned and worked together. Finally, Kryn spoke up. Professor Morrison, I have to ask, if humans are so good at cooperation, why do your own species sometimes fight wars against each other? Jake's expression grew somber. Because the same instincts that make humans excellent at cooperating within groups also make them excellent at competing between groups. Human tribes, nations, and cultures have spent thousands of years perfecting strategies for conflict with other human groups. But you've moved beyond that now, Veltar said hopefully. Mostly. It took humans a long time to realize that our own species was just another partnership opportunity, but we figured it out eventually. Jake began packing away the specimens, but his students weren't moving to leave. There's one more thing, he said quietly. Earth's ecosystem didn't just produce cooperative predators and prey. It produced cooperative everything. The competition wasn't between individuals. It was between different models of cooperation. He looked at each student in turn. Humans won that competition. We became the most cooperative species Earth ever produced. And then we left Earth and started the same process all over again, but this time with intelligence guiding it instead of blind evolution. Zixara stood up slowly, her forearms shaking slightly. Professor, the final class of the semester arrived under circumstances Jake Morrison had not expected. Word had spread throughout the university about his course on Earth's predator-prey dynamics. What had started as 11 students in a small classroom had become something much larger. When Jake arrived that morning, he found his usual classroom packed beyond capacity. Students from dozens of species filled every seat and lined the walls. Professors from other departments stood in the back. Even some university administrators were present, their expressions ranging from curious to concerned. Jake's original students sat in the front row, Zixara with her forearms folded tightly against her body, Veltar humming at barely audible, frequencies and Kryn with his ears pressed flat against his skull. They looked like students preparing for an exam they knew they couldn't pass. Good morning, Jake said, his voice carrying to every corner of the crowded room. I see word has gotten out about our discussions. A nervous ripple passed through the audience. Jake activated the holographic display showing a simple image of Earth from space. For the past month, we've been studying Earth's ecosystem and its evolutionary history. Today, I want to talk about what this means for all of us. Here, now, in the galactic community. Jake paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces watching him intently. Let me start with a simple question. How many of you have worked with humans since first contact? Nearly every appendage in the room rose. Hands, claws, tentacles, and crystalline projections indicated that virtually everyone present had some experience with human cooperation. Good. Now, how many of you noticed that working with humans felt natural, easy, like you'd been doing it longer than you actually had? The same appendages rose again, but more slowly this time, as the implications began to sink in. This isn't an accident, Jake continued. Humans have been refining the art of interspecies cooperation for 300,000 years. What feels natural to you is actually the result of hundreds of thousands of generations of evolutionary pressure. He changed the display to show human first contact records with various species. In every case, the pattern was the same. Initial contact, rapid establishment of communication, quick progression to trade relationships, and eventual deep cooperation. Humans approach every new species the same way our ancestors approached potential pack members. We look for common interests, establish communication, build trust, and create mutual benefit. A student Jake didn't recognize raised a tentacled arm. "Professor Morrison, are you saying that humans manipulated us?" Jake considered the question carefully. Define manipulation. Did humans use psychological techniques refined over millennia to make cooperation seem appealing? Yes. Did humans deliberately present themselves as valuable allies while downplaying potential threats? Yes. Did humans structure agreements to benefit both parties while ensuring human interests were protected? Absolutely. The room was completely silent now. But, Jake continued, did humans lie about their intentions? Did they break agreements? Did they exploit their partners? The historical record suggests not. Humans genuinely want cooperation to succeed. Because successful cooperation makes the pack stronger, Veltar said, her chiming voice audible throughout the room. Exactly. Humans learned long ago that the best partnerships are mutually beneficial. Exploitation might work in the short term, but cooperation works forever. Jake brought up a timeline showing the expansion of human influence in the galaxy over the past 2 centuries. It wasn't a story of conquest or domination. Instead, it showed a steady growth of cooperative networks, with humans at the center but not necessarily in control. Look at this pattern, Jake said. Humans don't conquer civilizations, they connect them. Every species that partners with humans gains access to the entire human cooperative network. A Thektai professor from the back of the room spoke up. But humans benefit more than anyone else from these arrangements. Of course they do, Jake replied. Humans designed the system, but everyone else benefits too, which is why the system keeps growing. He showed economic data, technological advancement rates, and cultural exchange statistics. Every species that had formed partnerships with humans had improved in virtually every measurable way. This is what Earth's ecosystem taught humans, Jake explained. The most successful predators aren't the ones that eliminate all competition. They're the ones that turn competition into cooperation. Kryn stood up suddenly. Professor Morrison, I need to ask you something directly. Are humans planning to take control of the entire galaxy? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the room focused on Jake. That depends on what you mean by control, Jake said slowly. Do humans want to be the center of a galactic cooperative network? Yes. Do they want every species to adopt human-compatible systems and institutions? Yes. Do they want to influence major galactic decisions? Absolutely. Jake paused, letting the implications sink in. But do humans want to rule the galaxy through force or domination? No. That's not how successful pack hunting works. He brought up images of wolf packs, lion prides, and early human tribes. In any successful pack, leadership is based on competence and trust, not force. The pack follows leaders who make good decisions and care about the pack's welfare. Leaders who abuse their position get replaced. So humans see themselves as pack leaders, Zixara said quietly. Humans see themselves as the species best adapted to create and maintain cooperative relationships. Given their evolutionary history, this isn't an unreasonable assessment. Jake changed the display to show current galactic politics. Human-sponsored trade agreements connected most civilizations. Human institutions mediated disputes between species. Human colonies served as neutral meeting grounds for diplomatic conferences. Humans have already become the de facto coordinators of galactic civilization, Jake said. The question isn't whether this will continue. It's whether other species will recognize it and work with it, or fight against it and lose the benefits of cooperation. A crystalline voice rang out from somewhere in the crowd. What about species that don't want to cooperate? Jake's expression grew serious. Earth's ecosystem was very clear on that point. Species that couldn't adapt to cooperative strategies went extinct, not because anyone killed them, but because they couldn't compete with species that worked together. The silence in the room was absolute now. Even the air recycling system seemed to have quieted. I'm not threatening anyone, Jake continued. I'm just explaining what humans learned from 3 billion years of Earth's evolutionary history. Cooperation works. Competition without cooperation doesn't. He looked around the room, making eye contact with as many students as possible. But here's what makes humans different from any predator that came before them. Humans actually want their prey to become partners. We genuinely prefer a galaxy full of thriving, independent civilizations working together to a galaxy full of conquered subjects. Because partners are more useful than subjects, Veltar observed. Because partners make the pack stronger, Jake confirmed. And because humans have learned that the best way to hunt new challenges is with as many allies as possible. Jake turned off the holographic display and moved to the front of his desk. Let me tell you what humans see when they look at the galaxy. We see thousands of species, each with unique capabilities and knowledge. We see vast resources and unlimited potential. We see the biggest cooperative challenge any species has ever attempted. He smiled, and for the first time in days, it was a genuinely warm expression. Humans have spent 300,000 years perfecting the art of turning strangers into allies. We've practiced on every species on our own planet and then on every species we've met in space. We're good at it because we've been doing it longer than any other intelligent species in the galaxy. Jake began packing his materials, signaling that the lecture was ending. Your homework assignment is simple. Go back and look at your own species. History with humans. Look at the agreements you've signed, the institutions you've joined, the technologies you've shared. Look at how your civilization has changed since first contact. Students began gathering their belongings, but slowly, reluctantly. Ask yourself this question. Are you better off now than you were before you met humans? Jake closed his bag and looked up at the crowd of students and faculty. If the answer is yes, then you're already part of the pack. You have been since the day your species decided to work with humans instead of against them. As the crowd filed out, conversations buzzed in dozens of languages and communication methods. Jake's original students lingered behind, uncertain and troubled. Professor Morrison, Zixara said finally, what happens to species that realize what's happening and decide they don't want to be part of the pack? Jake thought for a moment before answering. That's never happened before. Every species that understood the situation chose cooperation. But if someone did decide to opt out, he shrugged. Humans would respect that choice. We'd maintain diplomatic relations, honor existing agreements, and continue offering partnership opportunities. But we wouldn't force anyone to cooperate. And if they became hostile? Kryn asked quietly. Jake's expression grew cold.